Hi, I'm very privileged to be here with one of the top wine consultants in all of China and the co-founder of Dragon and Phoenix Wine Consulting. Edward, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Very nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Now, the interest in wines are starting to develop and flow onto the second-tier cities and perhaps eventually the third-tier cities and all of China.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be careful with that. There is a tendency for people to overemphasize how many people are actually drinking wine, and it's very hard to get real data on what's going on, although there are some people who are looking into this. But sure, I mean, there is that interest developing, and it's particularly among 25 to 35-year-old young Chinese people who have this interest. So there's a strong generational effect in particular. So people actually want to learn about wine, who are drinking wine, maybe purchasing wine, fairly regularly. They are beginning to actually learn about it, and they're literally the future, but they're the future of any kind of wine culture here. And they are what make it exciting, rather than maybe an older generation who've come to wine latterly or only recently.
Really? It's the younger generation, the 25 to 35-year-olds that appreciate wine. What is it about about wine that attracts this young, hip generation?
Well, I think because these are people who were born later, they were born after the Cultural Revolution, they live in a very different kind of China from often their parents. Maybe they've studied abroad, maybe they've studied in Australia. They're more outward looking anyway to begin with. When it comes to wine, they're looking for something that has a story, that is an honorably made product, that it's safe to drink, it comes from an interesting environment, it may be made from an interesting family, say it's an Australian family winery, for example. It has a story to tell, and it's several things. It's something they can trust, it's something that's fun to drink, it's something that's interesting to learn about, and it appeals to them as a slightly exotic product, to put it mildly. They really have a great interest in what wine can be. And it also, just briefly, it turns into a lifestyle question as well. To them, they see ways of living and eating and drinking that are a little bit healthier, perhaps, than what they've experienced from their parents' generation.
Definitely. Now, getting to the specifics, what kind of wine styles do Chinese people actually like?
It's a great question. It's a really good question, because as you'll know, that there's a lot of pressure, I suppose, socially for people to be seen drinking certain things, particularly if they're older, affluent Chinese. They're not really drinking for intrinsic reasons. They just want maybe labels, and they want face and all the rest of it. When it comes to wine style, so the point I have to make is this. Some people think they're expected to like certain things, but in reality they like different things. And we see this a lot with our students that we teach. So they might come to a wine class thinking, I like Bordeaux in particular, I think I should like Cabernet Sauvignon. In reality, they go home and their favorite wine is, say, a sparkling Moscato or something like that, which is, of course, a wine style that Australia has really pioneered in recent memory. So there's a lot of people who talk big, bold, famous wines, when in reality they probably prefer something that's a bit more not cheap and cheerful exactly, but something that's a bit easier to drink. That's not too tannic, not too acidic, and is friendly. And Australia is privileged because it can make a huge diversity of wines and have something for everyone.
Yes, actually, at the beginning, when I just joined the wine company 4 years ago, I told my university teacher I was now working for the wine company. He was very surprised, because he cannot imagine a girl has something to do with alcohol. He said, why do you work at the wine company? You're a girl, you should be far away from alcohol.
I see.
But now, more and more my friends drink wine, and they would like to know more about wine.
Now, how about Australian wines? What types of, what kinds of Australian wines do they like?
I think Australian Shiraz, which of course comes in many different forms and styles, is something that people have heard of. When I say people, I mean Chinese wine consumers, however you want to define them. So Aussie Shiraz has a tremendous future in that sense. It's a little bit more approachable, of course, than Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a great variety. So although a lot of Chinese visitors to Australia may well have heard of Cabernet Sauvignon, when it comes to reds, and a lot of them think wine should be red for reasons you'll know, they tend to gravitate towards Shiraz in terms of taste preferences.
What about the language barrier when it comes to the terminologies? I mean, the terminologies we use in wine, when it comes to dealing with wines in French and in English, can make one's head spin sometimes. Now, translating that to Chinese, how are you guys tackling that problem?
Well, this is really, I mean, our company, Dragon Phoenix, is run by my wife, Fong Walker, and she has a translation team. They really specialize in wine translation. It's not so much my area, but what I would say, one of the mistakes that often wine people get into when they're trying to explain, say, what their winery does, is to go into too much detail, particularly with technical information and also with things like soil types. I mean, most consumers in the world are not interested in soil types or the specifics of a vineyard, other than maybe if you're talking about the general environment. I think that's really important for Chinese visitors to say, you know, we're doing things sustainably, or we're doing things organically, or, you know, the wine you're drinking here comes from grapes that have been harvested and grown in such a way that there's no detriment to the environment. And I think that's really critical because, as you know, that there are so many products in China that people are suspicious of. Have they been contaminated? This is a very polluted country. And this is something, say, for example, the New Zealanders, the Kiwis, have been doing very well with their marketing of, you know, pure New Zealand. They're really selling an idea of a pure environment. So, you know, if I was ever going to get close to a vineyard, I wouldn't go too technical. I wouldn't use loads of terminology, but you'd have to find a way in Mandarin of saying, well, you know, this vineyard is a very pure environment, and it enables us to make a consistent, beautiful product that is natural and has not been screwed around too much within the winery as well.
Well, some great tips there. Thanks so much for your time,
Thank you very
Edward.
much. It's
Thank
my
you.
pleasure. Cheers.